First disclaimer, please ignore my appearance. I literally just got off work. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about that. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Madison and you should definitely click that little red subscribe button down below. Today I am filming a video all about my experience as a character attendant so far. I'm just gonna do a quick overview on my training, what it was like to, I guess, get to this point. And then I'll also answer a few questions that I get asked by people, future CPs. I've gotten a few DMs on Instagram asking certain questions. So if you see me looking down at my phone, that's why I have questions on here. I'm gonna start with training and I'm just gonna say it straight out. I don't really want to go into too much detail because I don't want this video to be too long. If you want a separate video on training and my experiences, definitely let me know and I will do that soon. But training for an attendant is 4 days long. You have 3 days of core, 1 day of core plus. Your first day of core is just kind of like a round table conference room meeting type thing. You go, I think it's from 9 to 5. And you just learn the basics of what it's like to be a character attendant. It is a lot of information, but once you go home and sleep on it and you get ready for your next day, which is core day 2, you get kind of, okay, this clicks with that type thing, but it is a lot of information. I will reiterate that it is a lot. So the second day is core day 2, obviously, and that is the day that you go into the parks with your character for the first time, which is very overwhelming, scary. You get a whole bunch of mixed emotions. Before I went out for my first set, I was a wreck. I was shaking. I was so nervous. Like, you don't want to mess up, and it's hard to mess up just because it's pretty straightforward. It's just you have to make sure you're doing all the basic things right, and if one basic thing isn't right, it messes certain things up. So I'm not going to go into too much detail again on my core because it would be a long video. First character I ever worked with was Donald Duck, and then I think I worked with him again after that. So I worked with him for 2 sets my first day, and then I worked with Winnie the Pooh, and then I worked with Chip and Dale. So I worked with those 4, yeah, or those 5 characters, I guess you could say, my first day, which was super fun. It's, again, very overwhelming, but you can do it. I promise you. Don't let it scare you. You can, anybody, like, you can do it. I promise you got it. That leads me into the second day, or the third day, I should say. The third day of core is basically the same thing. You're still in Epcot, but you just kind of go right into it. You've already had 4 sets under your belt, which your sets are groups of, I think we did 4. Groups of 4 and 20 minutes apiece, so you're out with your character for 20 minutes. That day I worked with Rafiki, Max from a Goofy movie. I think I super greeted Witchman. I wasn't with a character, I was just like interacting with guests. And then my last characters were Goofy and Pluto, and that was a challenge. I think that my leaders, my leaders kind of put me with them because it was very challenging. Mickey and Pluto don't usually meet together, and obviously if you see the boss man with his best pal, you're gonna want to meet him together. I did have to close that line ASAP, like at the beginning of the set, just because I couldn't keep them on stage over time. That's another thing, closing the line. Not going to get too much into that, but it is hard, but once you do it a few times, it does get easier because you have it under your belt and you get used to it. But Mickey and Pluto, I would say, was definitely my biggest challenge so far. After your core 3, you aren't in Epcot anymore. I think everybody trades in Epcot. I want to say all the attendants trade in Epcot. 4 day 4, I guess you could say. It's not 4, it's called Core Plus. It is park specific. So for those of you that don't know, my home park is Animal Kingdom, which means that my Core Plus was in Animal Kingdom. So Core Plus is just a day where you go with a leader or a trainer and they walk you through all of the different green rooms in your park. Luckily, Animal Kingdom is a little bit smaller entertainment wise, which I think is a good thing just because there is a lot to remember. In every green room or break room, you do have certain things for certain characters that you need to know, and that is very overwhelming. That's another day that I can honestly say made me a nervous wreck, because right after Core Plus, you then go into your solo shifts, and it was just a lot to remember. We also have, I don't know if some of you don't know this, we have dining, character dining in Animal Kingdom. It's called Tusker House. It was very stressful going in there for my core day plus just because you have to learn the rotation and stuff. But once you get the hang of it, you're good, you're golden. So I'm just gonna flat out say it, core plus day will be one of the most stressful days. But once you again go home and sleep on it, figure everything out, you then are like, okay, I know I can do this. Everything is gonna be fine, I got this. I'm only gonna go into my first day of being a solo attendant very briefly, just because again, I don't want this video to be too long. Right after Core Plus, my first shift ever was with Donald Duck, so I actually got Donald for my first character to work with ever, and then my first solo shift, which we just got that connection. So I worked with him, and that was super fun. Again, it flew by. I think that was a 8-hour shift, 9-hour shift. Flew by, it was super fun. He's awesome to work with. Love that little duck. Not really much to say there, just that it was really good. And I wasn't really stressed out. Just make sure if you're like, actually not even if you're like me, get there early. Literally every day, doesn't matter if it's your first day, get there early. You never know, depending on like what season it is, there will be traffic. Just I promise you, just get there early, leave early. That kind of brings me into some of my next questions. I'm just, again, brief. Question I'm asked a lot is how many hours a week do you work? Because a lot of people, obviously, you guys see my vlogs, I'm usually in the parks. That's not the case. That's like 1 to 2 days a week where I am in the parks and not working. I think last week I worked 45 hours. It is becoming a peak season with spring break coming around. I think spring break starts this week, I want to say. Sorry, I was checking my calendar. But I was working 45 hours last week. I know some of my roommates who are in different roles are now working, I think, scheduled 50 hours a week, which we're ramping up. We're getting there. As an attendant, I mean, again, it depends on your location. Animal Kingdom, the most I've worked, I think, is 45. Another thing about scheduling is that you get red time. I think this is the same for everybody in entertainment. You have a day every week that you are always going to be off. So my red time or my scheduled day off is always on Tuesdays. So I'll always have a Tuesday off, but it depends, like, oh, if it's a really busy week, I'll only have Tuesday off. Or, oh, if I have a less busy schedule, I'll have maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, or Monday, Tuesday, or whatever. So I think this week I have Monday, Tuesday, but then the next week I only have Tuesday. That makes sense. My home park is something I get asked about a lot. I have said it in a lot of videos that my home park is Animal Kingdom. A lot of people have asked me about Magic Kingdom. Yes, I have worked there. Again, I've only been here a month. I actually worked there the other day. I was in Princess Fairy Tale Hall with my friends Tiana and Rapunzel, and that was super fun. We had a blast. It was very, very fun and very memorable. I'll remember that for the rest of my life. But DAC, or Animal Kingdom, is awesome. I was nervous coming in because obviously if you're a CP, or honestly if you even, whatever, if you're a Disney person, you want to be in Magic Kingdom. I am very happy with my location. It's like a family. Don't let other people's perspective on certain locations, certain characters, or certain like spots in whatever park dictate how you feel about them. I will say that a lot of people will give Tusker, which is the dining Animal Kingdom, kind of like a bad rep, just for no reason. Like, I've never heard a reason as to why nobody likes this location, or I say nobody, like a few people. I don't know why. I've worked there about 3 to 4 times and I have not had any issues. I have not hated it. I don't really hate any location. There's not really a location in Animal Kingdom that I'm like, ugh, no, like don't schedule me there. It's just Animal Kingdom, again, is smaller entertainment wise, so there are less characters to work with. That can be a bad thing if you want a lot of variety, but you do get a lot of variety at the same time, if that makes sense, because obviously you're not going to be scheduled with Flick all 7 days of the week. Like, you'll get maybe Flick here, and then you'll be a Breaker here, and then you'll have like Russell. You will have variety, but it's not like Magic Kingdom where you can have, oh, I'll have Gaston on this day, but then like I'll be in Tomorrowland with Stitch like this day. It's very, obviously it's Animal Kingdom, it's like animal based, if that makes sense. I don't know. Shifts that I get a lot is another question. I have been scheduled with Goofy and Pluto in Dino Land a decent amount, Baloo and Louie, Mickey and Minnie at Adventurers Outpost. That's been very common. Also, I am scheduled spare shifts a lot. I am scheduled breaker shifts a lot. And for those of you that don't know what that is, so obviously you have your attendant. So if you're assigned to Baloo and Louie, you're their attendant, you're with them all day. Mickey and Minnie, same thing. Like at any location, if it says on your schedule like, oh, attendant 1 with Flick, you are his attendant, you are with Flick all day. You can get spare shifts, which I think there's 4 spare shifts, I want to say. That means that, let's say the attendant for Flick doesn't show up, then you spare 1 will get pulled, so that way Flick can go out and meet guests, if that makes sense, because the characters can't go out if you're not there. So it's just kind of a backup. So if someone doesn't show up or someone's running late or whatnot for whatever reason, you're a spare, you can go and fill in or just take their place for the day. Another thing is breaker shifts. Breaker shifts are really self-explanatory. You just give breaks to whatever like realm of characters you're in. I don't really know. So Rafiki's Planet Watch, for example, has a breaker. So I would break Rafiki's attendant and I would break Doc McStuffin's attendant. So just keep that in mind too when you're getting scheduled. I didn't know there were such thing as spare and breaker shifts, but you do get scheduled them a lot, especially if you're a CP, because obviously you don't have seniority over the people who are full-time, part-time, seasonal. You are at the bottom in the nicest way possible. Obviously you don't have seniority if you've only been there for a month and are only going to be there through like May or whenever your program ends. Another thing that I will say too, don't start picking up in other parks until you know your park like the back of your hand. That was one thing that I've seen some people do. It stresses me out. Like if that's you, you do you. I personally can't do it. It took me about a month to work up the courage to go other places. Once you get Animal Kingdom down, again, since it is a little bit smaller, you can go to other parks. I mean, it's not like a requirement, oh, you have to know, like you have to take a test in Animal Kingdom to make sure you can go. No, you can literally go anywhere. Character attendant, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, is globally trained, which means that you can virtually pick up in any park. That excludes specialty trained locations. It just depends on where you're wanting to pick up. But for the most part, you can work anywhere and trade shifts. And I think you can give away shifts as a CP, but you have to get them approved. You can't just like, oh, I don't want this. Like, oh, I'll only work 1 hour a week. That doesn't work. Like you have to get it approved by, I think, a manager, maybe a leader. So keep that in mind. Another thing, this is the thing I'm gonna end on, is hours, shifts in general. Before I came in, I was under the impression that you had morning shifts. I say morning shifts because they're not really morning shifts or AM shifts. It is an all-day job occurrence, an all-day job. So you could be scheduled, like your start time is 9 AM with whatever character. You will be there probably until 5 to 7-ish. It's not, oh, I'll only work with this character from 9 to noon and then I'll get to go hang out with another character from noon to 3. Like that's my shift. In Animal Kingdom, it's not like that. I can't speak on behalf of other parks, but when I get scheduled morning shifts, which is very, very often, which I prefer them, you are usually working from morning, so I would say 7:45 to 11-ish. It depends again on your location, the season, what's going on in the park. I'm not 100% sure, but you will usually be scheduled an all-day shift. And then there is PM shifts. I've been scheduled a PM shift, which is an evening shift, which will usually start around 3:45 or like 2, I don't know. I've only had one and it's been at Tusker. So 3:45 to around 9:15. Animal Kingdom isn't open super late, obviously. Magic Kingdom is open late depending on the seasons, depending on the guest count, all that nice stuff. So at Animal Kingdom, it's nice because you don't really have to worry about being there super late, but early depending on the characters and your location. You could be there, I think the earliest I've been scheduled was 7 for a spare shift, but that's only been one time, and that was at the very start of my program. I haven't gotten it since, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist still. I think that's it. I'm trying to think of other talking points. You will work a lot. Don't let that scare you. That's any role. The thing that differs about character attendance from other roles or entertainment, I don't know. Again, I'm not an expert. I'm just trying to help out my homies. But for example, like my roommate, she works a morning shift. So she'll open her ride at 6 AM, do like all the pre-ride stuff, and then be done by 1. Attendants don't get to do that. You are usually working an 8 to 12-hour shift. It doesn't work that way, and just know that, because there are very few times when you'll get scheduled not long shifts, if that makes sense. Okay, well, now I'm rambling. I honestly don't remember a lot of my talking points. I know I forgot to write a lot down on my phone. If you guys have any more questions, please let me know. I hope this video was helpful to future CPs. I tried my best. Sorry, I'm really scatterbrained. Just got off work, you know, that work life. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.